My void will consume you, if you ask nicely.
Your will is no longer your own.
Stay away from the voodoo. Toi!
You have led the Horde to a place without honor.
Your petty quarrels only make me stronger.
Our world needs us, champion.
You got it over your head.
We cannot let the world fall to darkness.
Already lost.
Put your faith in the light, and all is possible.
Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder.
It would seem you have guests.
They are coming for you. This is the Whispers of War.
Welcome to show 51 of Whispers of War, and that amazing new intro of the show is made by no one else but Thom from the Blue Recluse and 3 Extra Lives. So make sure you check out his podcast where there's so much sound talent as always. Thom has just been a wizard when it comes to creating sound bites. I am so blessed that he wanted to do this for me, and it just makes the show sound more epic. So thank you so much, Thom, and let's go on with the show. I'm your host, Sil, and let's dive into how was my week in Warcraft. I am waiting for Classic, of course, which is going to be launched tonight, and as you might have guessed, I'm a bit late with recording. Normally I'd always do it in the weekend, but it's been one crazy bank holiday weekend here, for me in the UK at least. So, you know, it's gorgeous weather, and I am that kind of nerd that does try to go outside when there's a bit of sun, because I'll be locked up inside for the rest of the week with Classic coming out. So I figured, you know what, I'm sure that everyone can wait one more day with the podcast being released. So yeah, it's a little bit late, but I'm prepping so much for tonight. Which means with my old age I have to have a little nap in between, otherwise I can't play all night. And that's probably what I have to do anyway with the queue times to actually get into the game. I know it launches at 11 PM for the UK, but I am sure I won't get in until probably midnight or after midnight. Even though I think I'm not on one of the very heavy populated servers, I still think there will be much of a queue time, but we can try. And I will be streaming that as well. Anyhow, how was my week in Warcraft with anything that is, you know, retail? I started leveling some of my alts, well actually one of my alts. I leveled my hunter a little bit, my human hunter, just because she is the highest. I've decided to work from high to low because I think I get more satisfaction out of the fact that I have another 120 and another 120. I'm basically doing the same thing I did back in Cataclysm, which is just level all the characters that I have and drop them like a hot potato once they're there. I just want to get them all to 120. So that would be an achievement for myself. And it's also a little bit of saving money, because I'm very tempted to move some of my level 100 tunes over from my old server to my current server, just because of the completionist in me. You know, I see the Pandaren that I have, the gnomes and the dwarves, and I'm like, okay, well I could use those for the heritage gear, and they have their rep from there and they're almost that high, and I'm like, you know what, Sil, you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend 20 quid to move your character when you can just make a level 1 alt and just level it from 1 to 120. It's a shit ton of work, but you can do it. So yeah, I thought, why not do it that way? So for my own sanity, I'm going to level all my my highest characters first and just work my way down the list. And I'm also going to try to swap a little bit from Horde to Alliance in between, so I'm not constantly in Colteras, or I'm not constantly in Zandalar. So first it's going to be my human hunter, and then it's going to be my Nightborn hunter, who I think is really cool, and they both run around with the same ghost raptor that's called Ducky, because, you know, why not? It's that blue raptor that you can get in Orgrimmar, and I have it on both my hunters, just because I like those special pets that you can get. And that was also one of the reasons why I was thinking of rolling a hunter in Classic, but no, it's just too much work. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to find that perfect pet that you need to tame just to have an edge over other players. Not something I want to do, not with this. But anyhow, so my hunter is now 115. She was 113 when I started with her at the beginning of the week, so she's slowly going up there. I'm not making it a big priority. It's just very boring doing Colteras again, if I'm honest. So yeah, I'm just pottering around, and when there's an invasion up or something like that, I'll just do that. Any battles. Still in war mode, of course, which is very, very fun and easy actually as a hunter. Everything is a little bit easier on a hunter, so I'm taking less damage than I did with my other classes, and I take things down a lot quicker. I'm not really that fussed when I see an elite or something, which was definitely different on the druid and the rogue. I had to play it completely different. Whereas with this I can almost like AFK a little bit. No disrespect to hunters, but it does play a little bit easier. I'm sure that when you want to excel, you have to, but I'm not like, I'm just leveling odds, you know? So that is that. I'm also looking forward to go back to the Horde, because I haven't really played much on the Zandalar region anymore after my my rogue. What else? I went through some of my my stuff, and I have a lot of stuff, guys. So I found my old Warcraft magazines. Can you remember those? So a very long time ago, Blizzard produced Warcraft magazines, and every quarter you would get one. And it was really, I really enjoyed those. And I thought it was actually going to be something that would have a long-term life with Blizzard, but it kind of died down after a year and 3 months, I think. I only subscribed for the first year just because it was quite pricey, but it was a great magazine with stories and a lot of information. Of course, lots of that is now dated, but it's still really nice to sometimes read through them, just because of now that Classic is coming out. It's actually like this little walk through memory lane, and I just really like to read the interviews with all the players, and I'm wondering if those people still play, and why not, you know? I mean, I've been playing for 15 years, so I just missed one magazine because they stopped. You could subscribe for the next year, which I didn't because of reasons, and then they cancelled the subscription. They stopped the whole magazine after that first issue in the second series. And people who were subscribed got all the free pets, I think, that you could get in the game as a compensation. Which I already had, so in a way it was okay for me. But I just, you know, the completionist in me wanted that magazine, so off to eBay I went and I actually found it for, I think, $5, which is really cheap, because some people really want a lot of money for theirs, and I got it for $5. It is in perfect state. It still even has the poster inside of it. So I read those, and it was just lovely. And I also got my game manual, the beginner's guide that you got. It's not a first edition, which I'd hoped for, but I could have guessed. My old one was the first edition. I have looked everywhere in the house, but I can't find it. I have a suspicion I might have chucked it away, unfortunately. So I don't know where that went, but I have the second edition, and it's actually, you know, it's still kind of fun reading through it, but it talks about a lot of stuff that happened later on, like things from Burning Crusade. So it talks about glyph making, it talks about Draenei and Blood Elves, and even looking for dungeon. So yeah, this is definitely an older magazine, but it's not bad. And some of the stuff that's written in there is actually really, really cool. And I think for RP reasons, it's not that bad either, because it gives you a little bit of an informative bit about the races and the classes. So yeah, I'm actually really enjoying just reading the small bits, and there's also something about grouping up with other people and what's polite and what's not. Maybe we need to get that again in game. So that's really all I've been doing when it comes to all my books. I also made something on YouTube. Now the podcast already produces a video, a sort of like video. There's no video, but you see the recording on YouTube as well. But I decided to do that video, like I said I would, in my drunken stupor last week. fuck me, that was hard, guys. Like, honestly, I have so much fucking respect for all you YouTubers out there who make it look so amazing, because it's basically pretty shit. At least I'm not under the understanding that it's, you know, a great video. But for a first video, it is not too bad. It's not horrific. I need to tweak some settings. I am very aware of that. I also need to find out more about DaVinci Resolve 16, because certain things I have no clue what's going on there and why it's fused a certain way, or why certain things on screen don't appear when it should be. You know, the things I have in my head don't really have translated onto the YouTube video. Anyhow, if you want to see that's kind of like disaster, please have a look on YouTube. Again, I'm very open for any constructive feedback. If you're just going to say it sucks, that's your opinion, but it doesn't really help, if that makes any sense. But I've got some really nice feedback from people, so I am definitely going to keep at it. I don't know how much time I will have for it. I'm not a YouTuber, I'm a podcaster, so once in a blue moon one will come out. I have some ideas for the next ones. I think I want to do something about how to get into either walk up RP and just get started, or how to create your character, you know, how to really get your character concepts going. So that is for those who love RP, and I'm sure there will also be a classic segment in that, because I think if you want to try out RP, classic is probably your best bet, because you don't have to worry about, you know, a massive dragon that invaded Stormwind or any of the other areas. There is a lot less going on, really. And a lot of the big lore characters are still there, like Varian, somewhere, he's somewhere. But we have like Onyxia and Stormwind. Of course, you don't know that she's Onyxia. So it's just a little bit easier to get into RP. Try it out. You know, it's the perfect time to try it out. You probably won't get a lot of people RPing for the first period in Classic WoW, but I'm sure it will happen again. I mean, that's why I rolled on 2 RP servers, because I want to see how the RP is in that. And for a lot of people, they don't have their established characters. They start from the beginning. Hey, it's the perfect moment to jump into it, so don't worry too much. And like I said in the video, if you want to try it out, just tell people, whisper them and say, sorry, I'm new, I'm not, if I make mistakes, I'm really sorry. 9 out of 10 times, a nice RPer will just tell you, hey, don't worry about it, I'll help you out, and let's just do this. So that's my 2 cents. Anyhow, Classic WoW tonight. So, I'm going to stream it tonight, I hope. I need to make sure that I don't keep my boyfriend up, because he has work the next morning, whereas I have taken the whole week off to play this game. Now, I say I'm going to play the entire night. I am 15 years older than when this game first came out, when I was able to pull off an all-nighter. I don't think I can do that anymore. I think I will probably play about 4 hours max, and then I will probably have to call it a night and get some sleep and wake up at a normal time and probably play all day. And I'm doing it a little bit different than the years before. The years before, I would have had all my junk food and my Red Bull and all that kind of stuff. Now it's just going to be some coffee, but a lot of water and a lot of fruit, because I know that actually keeps me up for the longest and makes me feel the best for the longest. So yes, in 15 years a lot of things have changed. And my other plan for that will be, I want to focus on getting to 60. So while getting to 60, I am working simultaneously on my professions, and those are going to not be like just the gathering professions. It will also be professions that I can actually make some gold with. And I found some really good YouTube videos out there, but it's for everyone, it's different what you want to do. But I found some videos out there that I thought, okay, so these are more options. I will do this because that will fit my character the best, and I think I will have the most fun with this. So I will be doing that because I want to get some money for that mount, because we all know that the mount and the training is going to cost so much money. There's a lot of guides out there that will help you by being the most efficient with your money, your training, and everything else. But if you just want to play the game, just fucking play the game, you know? Don't let anyone tell you how to play it. But this is how I want to do it. So that's my main focus, just to get to 60 and make some moolah. Other than that, I'm not focusing on PvP just yet, because in phase 1 I don't really feel like there's a point. Except for your own satisfaction of killing the opposite faction, just because there's no honor points or anything like it, and I'd rather just level and not get into an all-out feud with other players at that point in time. That will come later when you actually get some reputation for it. So that's my focus. I will be avoiding most other players as soon as possible. That's also why I want to go a bit fast. I want to get out of the areas that I know that most people will be in. And I'll be honest, I'm still a little bit umming and ahhing about which class to level. Now, I'm still going to do the troll mage, because I do love a mage, and I think it will be a little bit easier playing that to start with. But I think I will also focus on my druid. Just because I love the utility that druids have, just the versatility of what they can do and how they can excel in certain things. And I had a lot of fun with it when I was playing this in you know, vanilla WoW. But I think for now, the mage is probably the better choice when it just comes to pure damage, not having to collect so many sets. You will still have to collect sets anyway as a mage, but it's a bit different. So mage for now, and then druid later. It's also really nice that I've started to talk to a lot of people I used to play with back in Classic days and Burning Crusade days. I'm hoping that some of them will return. I know at least one person will return. I'm going to be playing with Fa again once she has her computer up and running, so that will be really, really lovely. And that's really it. So those are my plans for Classic tonight. So hopefully I can stay up long enough, and hopefully you can join in the stream. So if you want to catch me on stream, you can do that by going to twitch.tv/muckmonkeys with 2 Zs. That's where I'll be tonight. I don't know if I'm going to play with camera. I don't know if you need to see how rotten I look at that time. But I will be talking with you guys in the chat room if you're typing there. So that's really it. Now I'm going to leave you with an amazing interview I had with the lovely Callie, and we talk about anything that has to do with guild leadership and all those fun things, and especially the female perspective of leading a guild. So I'll leave you with that, and I will see you on the flip side. And today I'm being joined by another lovely female from the community. Welcome, Callie.
Hey, it's going to be talking to you.
It's going to be really nice to have a perspective from another female, and you are doing quite some important things, I have to say, in game. So we will talk about that later. But first, why don't you tell the listeners who you are, what you do?
Sure. So my name is Callie. Right now, my name is a warrior named Calibri. On Twitter, you can reach me at Calligraphy MMO. I always have to check my handle because I can't remember. Or my blog, calligraphywow.wordpress.com. That's why I get them mixed up. So like, is it Calligraphy WoW or Calligraphy MMO? And then on Twitch, I'm Callie Monk, but I don't really stream terribly often anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am the ex-GM of Tyrannosaurus Rex. We recently moved over to Seraph Guild, where I'm running the raid team, Tyrannosaurus Rex. I am our raid leader as well as our main tank.
That is a big role to fill, I would have to say.
Yeah, it's rewarding though in a lot of ways. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, leading is a thankless job," and it is in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still very rewarding because we've had to rebuild our team, and seeing all these happy, excited faces that are just super glad to be there. That's what keeps me logging in a lot of the time, even when the game's in a bad state or my class gets nerfed or something like that.
Yeah. No, I could imagine. And you said that you wrote for Wowhead in the past.
I actually used to be their data miner. I didn't write. I had scripts do that for me.
Okay.
I wrote Windwalker guides for a long time, but as I no longer play Windwalker, whenever I started working at Wowhead,
mm-hmm.
I handed that over to someone else because I'm like, I don't want to do WoW in my free time as well as in my main time. I'm no longer with Wowhead now, but that was... I can tell you a lot more about how spells work than most people can.
That's really cool, though. It must have given you a very different insight into things.
Yeah. For example, I remember this time we were working on Sestrazine Mythic and Tomb of Sargeras, and someone was like, "Oh, Thom can't miss." I'm like, "Actually, yes, it can, because every game can miss."
That is really, that's really cool. I've never really thought of it like that. I'm curious. Are you Horde or Alliance?
Unfortunately, I'm Horde.
Why unfortunately?
Recruiting reasons. I actually do prefer Alliance. I played Alliance for about a year back whenever I was in Temerity for some time during Warlords Draenor. Arguably the best time to be Alliance anyway, because Shadowmoon Valley was great. But I tend to prefer, I have a dog named Jaina, but frankly, I'm bifactional.
Yep, I think many people are nowadays. It has become so much easier now that you don't have to really pick a faction anymore on your server.
Yeah, agreed.
How did you start your love for World of Warcraft? How did it all happen for you?
Well, I remember I was in Walmart and I had $20 I could spend on a game. There were a couple that were on sale, some of which at this time had come out, because $20 used to be a lot of money. And I could either buy World of Warcraft, which Burning Crusade hadn't come out yet. It was announced, it was in beta, like the late stages and all that, but not even the pre-patch had hit. Or I could get Civ 4. Now, I've been visiting a friend's house and like borrowing her WoW account and all of that because my parents didn't want to pay for it. But one of my friends, I was talking to him, I'm like, so should I get Civ 4 or should I get WoW? And he's like, are you dumb? Are you not paying attention here? He's like, you should get WoW. I never actually did buy Civ 4, but I did get into Civ 5. But that he got me to make my shaman, which wound up being my first character, and also the first character I ever tanked on, because for a long time there was a build that you could tank on with shaman, where Earthshock actually worked as a taunt, even throughout Burning Crusade, before they had Rockbiter. And you could choose certain talents that would give you basically a shield spec for enhancement. It wasn't great, you weren't going to tank any bosses, but you could definitely hold your own in Dire Maul.
Yeah, I remember seeing them do that. I do remember that, but it's been a while since I've seen that.
My fiance actually found his old intro guide to World of Warcraft where they actually mentioned that shamans have a take spec.
Wow, you know what? I hope I still have that guide somewhere. But I didn't know it was actually in the guide.
Yep, that's why I chose it, because I was like, I want to heal and tank. And my friend was already a druid, so he suggested shaman.
That's really, I wonder if we'll go back to that way in Classic when it comes out, because that would be very, very interesting.
I would love it. It would actually get me to play Classic.
And that was it, then you were hooked.
Yep, that was it. I healed basically up until Spine of Deathwing as a main. But during Wrath, as well as Cataclysm, and a little bit of Burning Crusade. Excuse me, sorry. I did actually have a couple of pink ults. I ran a warrior up to 30, but then I just couldn't get into it. I thought she was cute, like how she did her flips and all that, but the class itself didn't appeal to me at all. So in Wrath, I actually ran our alt run on my Death Knight. I hated Blood. I still don't like Blood, but I tanked on Frost and Unholy when those were a thing. And then in Cataclysm, I was raiding with a significant other at the time. I told you a little bit about the story ahead of time, but I basically told them if I have to continue healing, I swear to God, I'm going to quit. So they let me go on my druid as Resto. And so we were, raiding all that, and we'd had issues finding a good second tank and all that. Our other tank and I didn't get along either. And I think that's why this guy disappeared. But what happened was we were progressing on Heroic Alice Razor, and we're all online and ready to go and all that, and he just doesn't appear. He doesn't even log in. So I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm a bear. Put me in, coach. And we killed Alice Razor that night with me as a bear, because he couldn't even kill his ad, I remember. And it turned out to be a lot easier to find a good healer than to, replace me as a bear. But I wound up leaving that guild on Spine of Deathwing when I was assigned to tank the Amalgamation, and the Paladin kept hitting Avenger's Shield, which I guess had a taunt effect on it at the time, and would pull it off of me through my taunt and then yell at me. And I finally just got fed up and was like, dude, then maybe you should stop taunting it off of me. And I was asked very nicely, maybe you should start looking at other guilds.
Oh, God.
So I wound up going to one that had already cleared the tier prior to all of the nerfs that it went through. I joined them for part of Miss Pandaria, but I wanted to go a little bit more hardcore. Wound up going Windwalkers so that I could raid US top 50, and started writing a lot of Windwalker guides because I just got really into it. I didn't get back into tanking until full-time, until Tomb of Sargeras, which Mythic Plus kind of reminded me how much I love tanking. But it's very hard to find a role in a high-end guild as a tank because they're typically going to already have a melee who wants to go tank and has been there for a long time.
It has certainly still grabbed you, though, because you are at the moment, and now we're rolling into your main topic, because you wanted to talk about running a guild and a raid team from a female perspective, and also being a tank. So you are still tanking then?
Absolutely. So my guild and a social club died in Tomb of Sargeras. Our raid leader just had a lot of real life stuff happen. I won't get too far into it because that's his own personal stuff, of course. I'm still very close to them. I went to them for so much advice when I was making my own guild and figuring things out. But I just kind of went on Twitter and I'm like, hey, I'm a tank and I'd like to tank things, and no one had any room because I wanted to go, if I was going to resub, I wanted to still raid Mythic. Nothing against Heroic, it's just, it doesn't interest me as much. It doesn't challenge me.
Yeah.
So then I was like, since I made a guild, would anyone actually want to join it? And less than a week later, I had a roster sheet of about 30 people, which then turned into 36 people. So far this expansion, I played my Vengeance Demon Hunter. I played a little bit of Brewmaster for Mythic Jaina, but right now I'm maining Warrior. Funny enough, that's the irony of the story, is how much I disliked it. And then I actually gave it a real go, and now I absolutely love it.
What is it that pulled you towards, that made you switch all of a sudden, that you're like, actually, I really love it?
Vengeance felt like a wet paper bag when running high-end content. I remember doing a 16-way Crest Manor on Tyrannical on my super undergear at the time Warrior, and the one Wickerman boss that gets the growing stacks, one of my friends was like, all right, don't reset it, just trust me. So I sat there and took 60 stacks. My Vengeance Demon Hunter, which was like 10-20 gear item levels ahead of that, gets to 30 and goes flat.
Ooh.
So, and then we were running a 15 freehold on, I think it was a fortified week, and it wasn't a hard week at all. But I hit meta and I start kiting and I get global from 30%. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't fun anymore. So I think Brewmaster is a lot stronger as a tank than Warrior is, but Warrior has just a lot going on. They've got anger management, which gives them a lot of, every time they use rage, that lowers the cooldown on their avatar as well as a lot of their survival cooldowns. So they feel really dynamic as a result, and they have procs to adjust to. It's not one static rotation like with Brewmaster or Vengeance. So yeah, that's kind of pulled me into it more. I still wish the class, I'm still a little bit girly in terms of I like having my monk's aesthetic more, but it is so boring.
Well, it's good at least that you found a tank that you really, really are enjoying. Can you tell a little bit about why you picked the subject of running a guild and a raid team from a female perspective?
It's something so we recently kind of folded because of recruitment. We had about 13 people that wanted to leave after we got cutting edge last year. And that caused me to start kind of looking at our options. Either we were going to quit and stop raiding, or I had an offer to come join Seraph. And I've stayed up pretty late speaking with Jamie, who is one of the co-leaders of Seraph Guild, and she and I have a lot of the same things that happened to us. For example, like one thing that was related is just being the GM's girlfriend, which we've both had to go through. But more recently, I've had people kind of step away, and this happens less so nowadays, but it was something very apparent in Old Deer where they were basically convinced that one of the men on the officer team were running the show. They would go to one of them and voice their complaints or say, oh, we need to do this, instead of going to me. Because they were basically convinced, oh, he'll influence her to do this sort of thing. And like I said, it doesn't happen as much anymore. I think people have kind of gotten to know me, but it felt a lot like okay, I don't know how much fantasy you read, but Wheel of Time is my all-time favorite series. And there's a character in there called Egwene, and she becomes the Maryland Seat, which is super powerful. Think of her as a world figure for this organization at 18. And everyone wants her to basically be this puppet and figurehead. And that's kind of how I felt. And I'm like, but what she ends up doing is, with her own intelligence, basically, she gets them to see, no, I'm not just going to be your puppet. I'm not here to, play your games. I'm still going to do my best as a leader and lead. And so she kind of proves herself as being a very capable and effective leader. And that's kind of how I see myself a lot of the time is I've had to prove myself that, yes, I can handle this. Yes, I've led communities. I've led Peak of Serenity up until I got my current job. This isn't something that's completely new to me. But a lot of folks, I'm trying to think of good examples here of stuff that's happened. Right. So I did have another officer, and he hates me. He has me blocked and all that. And he's probably going to shit talk me for saying this. I don't care. But it came out. My best friend is I kind of view him as my co-leader, so to speak. And he was an officer at the time. He later stepped down. But he let me know that this other officer had said, I think it was something to do with the guild bank. And the other officer was like, oh, just don't wait on Callie. Just go ahead and do it yourself. Instead of it was something he wanted to ask me about a policy type thing. And I was like, really? You don't just say that. But yeah, it was a lot of people basically going to the melee officer being like, hey, we need to do this, instead of just coming directly to me to voice their concerns and all of that.
Do you think that was a little bit of shit stirring, or?
Oh yeah, the guy totally slammed me on Twitter and all of that, and he still does if he ever catches one that I've even mentioned his name. So
I see.
It sucks because it was a long time friendship, but he put out the logs and a lot of people looked at it and were like, wait, how is this supposed to make her look bad? He basically, what happened was he threw a fit because I sat him for one night of Gahoon to get more people uptime on the boss.
I see. Yeah. Do you feel that it could have been perhaps because you're a female? Or maybe that it has part to do with it, or?
In this case, I don't think as much with him, but in terms of how he treated me when I was GM and he was officer, I think so, absolutely. Because I noticed a lot of sort of manipulative, sort of head pat type stuff, and Callie, this is how this works. And I'm just sitting there like, do you not? I know how this works.
Did you get the mansplaining, basically?
Oh, yeah. That is my least favorite part of tanking a lot of the time. This is why my current co-tank, I tank with him in Final Fantasy as well as in WoW. And I'm like, dude, I can't tank without you, because there's too many times that I have gone to tank a boss and maybe I make some mistake, miss a taunt or position something badly. I'm human. I'm not perfect. And I remember, I've had so many co-tanks go, well, Callie, this is how you need to do it. And you just need to not taunt so early or late or whatever it is. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, I literally just said that.
Do you feel you have to work being, let's talk about guild leading first before raid leading, because that's a whole different ballpark again. Do you feel that you have to work twice as hard as a female to run a guild?
I don't know if it's twice as hard, but I think that you have to do things very different than as a guy.
Okay, can you explain how?
Absolutely. This was something that Jamie and I were talking about a little bit, and I've also spoken to Miley about it. If you come across as, quote, too harsh, too leadery, and you don't kind of suggest that people do things and kind of convince them to do it, you just get written off as a bitch. If you're a guy and you do that same thing, you're like, oh, he's a strong leader and all of that. It's very similar to my career, actually.
Yeah, I you hear that all the time, don't you? That's what would you say if any girls are out there and they're like, you know what, I do want to set up my own guild, like a successful guild, maybe with raiding or anything like that. What sort of tips would you give them?
First of all, accept that people are going to disappoint you. Male, female, doesn't matter. They will disappoint you, absolutely. They're going to talk to you they're going to talk about you behind your back, fair or unfair, it doesn't matter. It's going to happen. People vent. They will always disagree with you. Learn the signs of manipulation. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of very manipulative people out there, and I think that everyone is inherently at least a little bit manipulative. They don't mean to be. It's just sort of a human condition. You can't be friends with everyone. That is the mistake that I made, is I wanted everyone to like me. And that meant that a lot of them tried to take advantage of me. And they kind of got used to this status quo of, well, if I just do it, she'll just, kind of adapt, sort of thing. One of the examples that come to mind is during Eldir. We were, well, actually, even before Eldir, it was kind of in that weird pre-patch, new expansion phase. We were distributing Darkwind cards. And I had someone who basically ran 10 different accounts to farm herbs, and he was multi-boxing it. He claimed he wasn't botting. We'll leave that, that's not important. And I set up a spreadsheet that's like, all right, you contribute, you get, kind of bumped up in line for a card. Everyone would get one eventually. Mm-hmm. But this way, we weren't being unfair to someone who's contributing this amount. And this guy comes on and he's like, well, I'm going to just give people cards. And I'm like, all right, but you need to make a note that this is not something from me, because I have people who are contributing all these herbs and you're just giving them to your friends first. Which means that I have to deal with the fallout of, oh, why did so-and-so get their card, but I still don't have it? And and I came across him in a discussion that I guess he thought I wasn't reading, that said something along the lines of, well, you're just going to need to get used to the kind of help that I give. And I'm like, pardon me? But that comes to mind all the time because this person eventually left. But I had a lot of people that, I don't know if it's because we were on friendly terms before we came over and made the guild and all that, but they seemed to expect that they would have sort of more power and didn't need to take me seriously. For example, on one of them, I called him out because we kept calling the interrupts on the ads for Zekboss, and he would just take it. And it's like he wasn't even listening to us calling the orders. And for a lot of classes, that's kind of a DPS loss, in particular for our Havoc Demon Hunters or myself. And on top of that, it meant that we were running out of interrupts because he was munching everyone else's instead of following the order. So I called him out on it. And he got really pissed off about that. And in another case, the same person, we wound up sitting him because he kept just ignoring mechanics. Like, yes, your DPS is great, but if you're not actually doing mechanics, I don't want you in my raid.
Do you think that was just the person's ego, just being like, I am this amazing, I don't need to take orders from anyone, or?
A little bit, yeah. But I found out from another guild that he went to that he didn't pull that crap at all.
Okay.
But I think it was more just the familiarity with me as a person initially. The other thing that's happened more recently was, so we're rebuilding our team right now. We're at about 21, 22 people or so. We're still recruiting. And we get this Windwalker, and he seems great. I ran like a couple of keys with him, thanked him for like a lot of the tips he gave me because I hadn't really run a ton of keys in a while since I'd taken a break from Mythic Plus once I got geared up. And after the first time he was with us in raid, he's like, oh, I'm going to another team. And he sends this to another officer, not to me. I also just didn't really like Whatsherface the tank. And I'm like, wow. Okay, dude. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of, I think guild management as a woman really comes down to a lot of people think that you're expected to be nice to them. And if you're not nice to them, you're just a bitch.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? And it's like what you said, you hear that a lot in like the business world as well, or in any professional world, that people go, when a man does it, they're powerful and they have authority. When a woman does it, they're just a bitch.
Yeah, and I've also led a lot of teams in Final Fantasy, and I think this is where a lot of stuff shows up too, is, so my fiance and I both play. That's kind of how we got close. He's an ex-WoW person himself. He was a name in the shaman community. He's still one of the admins, to my understanding. He ran Drow Guild as well. So he's been a huge support for me. But we came together and we were kind of running a Final Fantasy team that I wound up quitting. And it was like, my co-tank would often speak down to me. If I made even the slightest mistake on a raid call, it was like, oh, haha, see, told you don't know what you're doing, kind of reactions from people, and telling me, oh, why don't we do it this way? And, oh, well, we should have been doing it this way the whole time. And I'm like, all right, for that last one in particular, why didn't you say anything?
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
If you have to call it anything. Okay. I'm curious because as well as raid leading, you know, you or as well as guild leading, you also raid lead. What made you want to do that as well? Because it's like, I wouldn't want to say, oh, you're making like an extra target on your back, but why did you want that responsibility as well?
I raid leader quit. I had already been leading in Final Fantasy, so what happened there was whenever I joined, just no one was making calls, no one was making decisions.
Uh-huh.
The people that I cited, they'd sometimes do it when it, you know, was convenient, but it wasn't consistent. And the thing with raid calls is there's not really such a thing as overcalling. Mm-hmm. You're trying to keep a lot of the cadence, keep people from getting too stressed out about the encounter itself, especially once you hit those last phases. That's when people freak out. Mm-hmm. And you just got to make your voice be this really calm, all right, now we're going to stack, we're going to spread, you know, mm-hmm. keeping it simple, not panicking. So I started doing that in Final Fantasy, and I'm like, wow, I actually kind of have a knack for this. And literally all I do is read a timer half the time. I'm just like, all right, this is coming up. Do what we need to do for this. All right, this is coming up. You don't even really have to call stack spread sometimes if you're still learning, because you're still learning the encounter yourself. You haven't seen it more than they have. Mm-hmm. But with WoW, what wound up happening this week, I actually got notice from my raid leader because he was very disappointed in our team's progression, and he just kind of quit on me. So he's going more hardcore. I love the guy. He's one of the sweetest people I've met, but I think that maybe leading, he found it's really an overwhelming thing. And like you said, it is an extra target on your back. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's because I find it very hard for me to find a raid leader that can, you know, do our 2 nights and do it the way that I've seen other guilds do in the past of come in prepared, have the strats to the team ahead of time, have the notes to the team ahead of time, and do short calls. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do these long paragraph calls because I myself have a slight hearing disability. Mm-hmm. I'm on the spectrum, which means that a lot of my senses don't work very well, and in particular, hearing is one of them. I can't sit here and digest a whole paragraph. You tell me stack, spread, move, I'll do it. You tell me move to the left of the boss on the right with the triangle, and I'm just like, what? Especially because I'm left-right dyslexic. Never tell someone left and right. You don't know which way they're facing.
That's true. Very true.
Yeah. So that I'm kind of thrown into the role as of right now, but it comes fairly natural to me because as a tank, I'm already we're kind of the frontline commander, so to speak. We don't have a ton going on in our rotation. Let's be real here. So we have a lot more of the capacity to be able to call and adjust as needed. I don't know if you're familiar with Ariel from, I don't know what his character name is now. I just call it Nolan from Bear Retirement Home. And he was kind of talking about it. And a lot of these encounters are not easy to lead from a tank. So as far as I'm concerned, a raid leader is the person saying, all right, I'm making the decision, we're doing this, and taking input from everyone else and kind of condensing that down and sifting through it for what's important for that. Mm-hmm. And you delegate from there. I'm not going to be calling every little thing. I'm going to have other people calling that stuff. Like for the tentacle boss, the second to last boss right now in Eternal Palace, I have someone else calling the tentacles because I can't see them except for when I have Avatar up. So that's kind of what I've learned with it is it is a little bit scary. You do have a little bit of a target on your back from doing it, but don't be afraid to lean on other people.
It's not a bad tip at all. I'm curious because you say, you know, about the tanking and everything. So do you find it easy to combine it as a tank with raid leading, or?
It feels very natural, yeah, because the way that you position yourself and the boss and all of that has a lot of control over what's happening in the overall strat of the fight. For example, on Mythic Jaina, I was not raid leading. One of my really good friends was, but I'd written a lot of our strat up, and so it falls on you as a tank to decide, all right, I'm taking over here now. This is the timing I'm doing and that sort of thing. So you kind of notice a lot more with that.
Okay. I never, now that I think about it, I think all my raid leaders were tanks, if I'm honest. So that it's really interesting to actually be aware of that now. I never really thought, because I always from my, unprofessional mind of non-raid leader, I just always thought, yeah, I guess because they're just doing all the stuff, they know everything, so I'll just, I'll just go with them. But in all fairness, yeah, there might be a big, the whole fact that, they see it from a different perspective and everything. Yeah.
I was actually also having a discussion with my co-tank and stuff because he was a little frustrated because he's like, well, I want people to take you seriously because I kind of related to him how it's very hard to be taken seriously and be seen as the actual leader if you're deferring to someone else. And that sounds kind of crappy, but it's a little bit true because whenever I had someone else as a raid leader, people went to them, assuming that they were in charge of the entire team. And I'm like, no, they defer to me, I mean, it's shit, but it is what it is. My really good friend who quit the team after Mythic Data, because he just burnt out from all the negativity, all the complaints, and just the encounter itself. None of us enjoyed that encounter. Mm-hmm. And he kind of related to me how he often had to just push people to go speak to me, and they never did. Mm. So, in our newer leader, I was encouraging him to do the same because I would just get, people are upset about this. I'm like, who? I need names so I can, go hunt them down and talk to them about it. But they wouldn't come to me a lot of the time. So it made it very hard to address whenever there were issues because it's like, well, I don't know who to talk to get details on what to do and what, how to fix it.
Yeah.
I love the guy. Like I said, he is one of the sweetest people I've met, but it really put me in a poor position because I had to react to something I didn't have a ton of details on or just, leave it and seem ineffective.
Yeah, no, I can understand that frustration. How, when you recruit, and I don't know if you recruit or if you have special officers who do it or, any of your officers but when you recruit new people and they join, and they find out that you are female, what's the overall reaction to that?
It's generally been good so far.
Okay.
I have, my co-tank actually does a lot of our recruitment. He's done an amazing job on it, honestly. We went from about 10 people to over 20 by the time the tier debuted, and they're fantastic. I love all of our new people, and I love our old people too, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But it's such a breath of fresh air. But I attend every single interview. I'm like, I'm the team leader. I'm the person in charge here. I'm the person making decisions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been fairly effective.
Is that just also so that they get a bit of a taste of, okay, so I would have to deal with this person and just to see if it meshes?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, we had the one person who left because they didn't like Whatsherface the tank, which is just like, okay, dude, there's only one person who's a Whatsherface the tank. But most people have actually said that it's a breath of fresh air for them because in high-end rating, a lot of the time, because I also go over our expectations, which are like, Twitch terms of service, but I'm actually a little bit more strict on that. I don't tolerate any kind of slurs and stuff being thrown around. Mm-hmm. That's a breath of fresh air because they come in to raid, not to hear shit thrown around all the time. But I do warn them that I curse a lot, and they're like, that's fine, so do I.
That always makes it easier.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Callie, do you have anything else to say about anything you want to throw out there about running a guild and a raid team from a woman's perspective and being a tank before we jump back into BFA?
I mean, overall, I think it's a very rewarding experience. You're going to run into assholes. That's just how it is. And I think that has little to do with being a woman. It's just that it highlights more as a woman because we already deal with a ton of crap. Mm-hmm. And you're going to need to figure out a way to deal with people who are going to speak over you. It happens all the time. And the way that I personally deal with it is I just go as calmly as I can. May I please speak? Mm-hmm. I'm not done yet. And you have to learn to do that because we are so taught to just be quiet and to let everyone else speak. And you cannot do that. Otherwise, they will take advantage of that.
Yeah. It still baffles me, in 2019 that we still have to, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like I always feel like as soon as women talk about stuff like this, a lot of people who feel attacked immediately think, they're feminazis and everything like that. And it's not like that. It's not like women hate men at all. It's just, it baffles me that there's still guys out there who feel, that it's fine to do all of that macho crap. Especially now in 2019, that it's still present. It's just bad that we would still have to deal with it more than that. Guild leaders or raid leaders from the male sex have to do that, really.
Yeah, it's a lot harder for us to command respect than it is for them, is what I've observed. Like I said, we tend to fall into, she's just the guild leader's girlfriend or something, just completely ignoring whatever we're already doing behind the scenes. Or we're just a bitch because we want them to do what we want them to do, and we gave an order. Yeah, it is. It's baffling, really. All right, well... And just to qualify this, I did want to say, the people who are on my team, I absolutely love them. They are some of the most respectful people I've met. And the moment I say, hey, can I speak? A lot of them are like, oh, sorry, yeah. Because they're like, well, it's just the delay and all this. And I'm like, well, if I'm speaking, you should stop. Good. No, that's really good. I'm happy to hear it. Jaina. Yeah, go ahead. That's actually, you know what? That's actually really funny hearing that. Because your dog is called Jaina. Yeah. All right, let's jump into BFA. Sure. What are you most impressed with in Battle for Azeroth? Master Tar is awesome. Yeah. I have been super impressed with the level design in particular. Has been great. Admittedly, in 8.2, I took a little bit of a break just to deal with burnout. But I love that they actually did an underwater zone that just feels so different. It's been great. Okay, how do you feel about Mechagon? Admittedly, I haven't spent as much time there. I think it's neat, but I really hate daily quests. I hate daily quests. My quest log is full all the time now, and I hate it. Yeah, I know that feeling. So what are you least impressed with when it comes to BFA? I'm going to be very honest. I am super salty about this expansion. Tank balance is terrible. The only two tanks that really feel worth bringing anymore are Brewmaster or Warrior. I think Paladin's in a much better spot right now, but that's because of encounter design at the moment. I can't comment on other classes. I don't play anything other than tank. I've played Havoc, Demon Hunter, but I'm not super happy by how they have continued to handle flying. To me, that has been kind of like, it's like a symptom of a greater disease where it feels like they want us to play the game how they want us to play it. I love flying. When I'm done with the story and all that, I should be able to, get up and fly. Final Fantasy handles it such that I had flying in Final Fantasy's brand new expansion long before I had it in WoW's 10-month-old expansion, because you can get it day one that it drops, because you just go, you explore all the zones, you do a certain amount of quests, including their main story quest, and then you're done. Whereas I'm not a fan of the fact that they added another gate to it by having the additional routes. Because like I said, that should have just been to unlock flying in Ashtar and Mechagon, not for the entire expansion. They need to stop waiting so long to give it to us. It should be like a first patch thing versus a year through the expansion when everyone's quitting. Okay. It shouldn't be like a band-aid, like, it's... Exactly. Okay. I think that a lot of the chores from Legion have continued on. Whenever we had the 13 people quitting, it wasn't that they were going to other guilds. There were maybe 2 people that left for other teams. Most of them quit the game completely. They weren't happy with their class design. They felt that their classes were boring because your character is your first interaction with the game. If you're not having fun on that, you're not going to have fun no matter how pretty or how cool an encounter is. And a lot of them don't like the chores, like just the ongoing chores. So Final Fantasy has its own chores as well. They have their own kind of Valor points thing. You get 450 per week. You can cap it in about half an hour's worth of time over 4 days. Whereas I think that continuing this neck grind for Azeroth or for artifact power has not been good. It's just a continuation of Legion. Oh, well, we got a break in Antorus. Great. You got 1 break over 2 years. And now you're back at it again. The essences are cool. I don't know why they're on the GCD, but I don't think they do what Blizzard had announced them to do of, quote, saving the system, because Azerite gear still exists. We still have to grind that Titan Residuum, and you still have to grind neck levels, and it's like, it's just not a good system. I think it's good to be able to grow your character outside of Raid. But that's why we have Mythic Plus. I enjoy Mythic Plus. But yeah, that's kind of where my mind is. It's too many chores right now. Waiting on Flying is the greater part of the whole of wanting us to play the way that they envision it versus letting it be an RPG in a sandbox.
Okay, that's fair enough, I think. I think that's fair enough. You raised some really good points there. In regards to everyone playing BFA, who's still playing it, but might be a bit on the fence with certain things, maybe you have some good tips for people who are in BFA. Maybe they are not enjoying what they're doing at the moment, or they want to achieve a certain thing. Something you might have discovered while playing. What would be your tip for the listeners regarding BFA?
This is going to sound like I'm telling you to quit. I'm not telling you to quit, I promise. But don't be afraid to take a break. I noticed that a lot of our team members... hold on, my Roomba wants to start. That's how I know it's noon. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But don't be afraid to take breaks. I think right now the way that the game is designed is very hurtful to it in terms that it encourages you to only play one character and pretty much be logged in 24/7 into that. One of the things that I was under fire for my team was that I decided after we killed Jaina, I'm taking a break. I'm stepping away from the game for about a week and just recharging. And that was the best choice I made. Mm-hmm. Yes, being behind because 8.2 debuted around then. But it's nothing that I haven't caught up on. It's nothing that's held my team back. And I'm like, I would much rather not want to quit this game and take a break than to, let my team down and quit. Mm-hmm. As a leader, don't be afraid to take time for yourself. Learn how to filter through a lot of the negative stuff. It's not you. A lot of time, people are going to vent a lot of their real life frustration into the game. They're not always going to agree with your choices. If they leave, they're replaceable.
I think that those are brilliant tips. And especially, I think people need to... they need to take some time for themselves. I think a lot of people don't anymore. I think, especially being raid leaders or guild leaders, a lot of people seem to let other people lead their lives, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Like I said, I had a lot of people who were... Well, actually, I don't know how many people I know who were mad at me. It was one person who came to me and said, oh, well, we're concerned that, you're not pushing as hard and we don't want to have an officer who isn't like... My neck level is right where it's supposed to be. We required 55 before we hit Mythic. I hit 55. I'm a plate wearer. We have 2 plate wearers in the raid team, and I'm still one of the highest item levels. I don't think I'm someone you need to worry about, is what I said. But you do have a lot of visibility, and you just have to remind them sometimes, I have a full-time job. You guys are also playing other games. You guys are also hanging out with your friends and all that. Life happens.
Exactly. Okay.
Worry about your own mistakes before you worry about mine.
No, I think that's absolutely correct there. I'm wondering, what has the Warcraft community meant to you? Because you've been quite involved into it. So what has it meant to you?
So I went through several years, specifically when I worked at Wowhead or ran into communities, of dealing with a lot of really crappy harassment. I'll be very upfront about that. It made it such that I didn't even want to appear on podcasts for a long time. I didn't want anything to do with them for a long time. Mm-hmm. I came to realize that those are some very sad people. Harassment's going to happen. And you know what? It's pretty sad because they don't know me at all. They don't know what kind of person I am, and they never will. And on top of that, it's kind of pathetic that they think I even care about them or their opinion. I have a lot going on. However, whenever I kind of just ignore them, I've met my fiance through World of Warcraft. I met some of my best friends through it. I wouldn't be who I am now. I live in Washington now, and I moved up here because I had so many friends up here from my old raiding guild. And it's incredibly enriched my life through the sorts of connections that I've made.
That's really good. I mean, I think we will always get some negativity and stuff, but it's good. And especially that you met your fiance for a while. That's lovely.
Yeah, we were at Medieval Times for BlizzCon with a bunch of friends, and that's where I met him in person for the first time.
Oh, lovely. How was it to meet him in face to face for the first time?
I barely knew him at that point in time. We just kind of sort of followed each other on Twitter. And I was also involved with someone else that I broke up with a few months later.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, hey, yeah, it's cool to meet you. Put a name with a face, you know, super friendly and all that, but not really terribly much. It wasn't until after I'd broken up and was starting to date again, that I was like, oh, hey, my my permanently single friend, I'm going to come to you and bitch about dating. And then we asked each other out from there.
Aw, that's really cute. All right. So we have landed on the final question of the show. This is an odd question because I always get everyone, as soon as I send the questions, what do you mean with this one? So this is my failed experiment question, which is, what is your whisper? Now, a whisper can be anything from a wish in the game or a bit of fairy crafting when it comes to the lore. Basically anything that you want to put out there concerning World of Warcraft. So what is your whisper?
Oh, I have so many things. I mean, Volpera is one of them, as we sort of talked about offline. But the big thing is I would love to see tanks rebalanced. I would love to see them have more interesting playstyles.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I would love for Brewmaster to not be so head and shoulders above other tanks in raids.
Okay. When you say interesting playstyles, what do you envision?
Not being able to bind my character's abilities to a single button would be good.
Fair enough.
Most vengeance are both like that.
Okay, I think that's fair enough, and I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Yeah.
Well, who knows with BlizzCon this year? Who knows what we'll get?
Absolutely.
Well, Callie, thank you so much for this interview. If people want to find you, where can they find you on the interwebs?
On Twitter, I can be reached at Calligraphy MMO.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for this interview. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview. It's always really interesting to hear about women who have to lead raids or have to lead guilds or PvP teams even. Not because I think there's not enough representation out there. I think there's more girls playing than we realize. But I feel like even in 2019 we still get the negative comments about girls or women playing video games or even existing in video games. The last thing I saw on Twitter this week was something about a girl who played Overwatch, and she showed some of the toxicity that was aimed at her just for being a girl, and there were these guys talking on stream to her, and it was absolutely vile and disgusting. And you know, it shouldn't really have to happen anymore, and I'm hoping that Blizzard will just be a lot more strict when stuff like this happens to anyone, really. I don't think cyberbullying is something that we should accept as a society. So, you know, hopefully having some more female GMs and raid leaders, it will help to change that perspective that some people have. At least I'm keeping my fingers crossed for this. So yeah, I'm happy to see that it's been such a popular topic with all my guests, and we'll talk about it more in the future, absolutely. So my question of the week on Twitter was, have you ever led a guild or a raid team, and what is your experience with it? Have you ever been in a guild with a female GM or raid leader, and how do you think female GMs or raid leaders are perceived nowadays? So you guys of course responded, and Gwen Dark Iris said, my raid lead is female, she's a great leader, knows fights, explains well, and good calls for progression. I've tried to lead before in a group raid, it was pretty much ignored. Oh, well, group finder raids are horrible, but you tried, you know, you tried. I think group finder is very much like herding cats, so at least you gave it a shot. And who knows, maybe you can do it with when your raid lead is off, maybe you can step in. So that was the lovely Gwen, and as we all know, she's been a guest before, so go back through some of the older episodes because it was lovely talking to her. Nixed said, I led a guild that I randomly joined and the DM disappeared after a month or two. Since we were all just randomly assembled, nothing came of it, and now it's a guild for my alts to have a guild bank. My Alliance guild has a female GM, she runs a tight ship. That's good. I think that is very good. Ashton Olive said, I've never led a group, but I've gotten confused and followed NPCs while questing and got separated from my party. And I feel like that's kind of what being a raid leader would be like. Yeah, I think you might be right there. Jackie Bradley said, I run Honorbound on Kirin Tor. Over 500 characters, 150 people. Friendly, fun, and easygoing. We don't raid any longer, but I still take folks into expeditions and dungeons. I have a few rules, but we're very happy people. That's good, as long as your group is happy. Laura Nay? Is that how I say it? I'm really sorry, I'm butchering everyone's name. Laura Nay said, I was a raid leader for a couple of years. I had a late night, a relaxed raid that was well attended in our guild, and I had a great time with it. Folks never said much about having a female raid leader, as they knew me from our progression team. Pugs were sometimes surprised. I bet pugs can be a bit surprised, but it shouldn't really have to happen anymore, I think, nowadays. The Joe Show said, I ran a guild from vanilla all the way through Burning Crusade. 80 Wife was raid leader of my main group, and she was amazing. Good, that's really good to hear. Of course, the lovely Drayla, she posted a little gif with an animation of someone raising their hand, which, yeah, fair enough. We know that she has. That was also an amazing interview. That was only a few episodes back, so make sure that you look at that interview and listen to it as well. Right, so Jamal said, I've led a raid team for the last 8 years, and I've run a guild in that time. It has made me have a roller coaster of emotions in that time. I've gone from really caring about rankings to just progressing and being proud of what we do. Spoiler, I'm more successful with the latter. I know a couple of pretty badass GM and raid leaders who could answer the second part of the question. That's really cool, and it's so nice to know that there are so many people out there who do stuff like this. So yeah, I think it's really good. It's positive. I've only really seen positive feedback when it comes to female raid leaders. So that's good. I think we're going somewhere with that. Let's see in a few weeks when I might ask the same question, how we are, especially now that Classic is out. We might encounter some more female GMs in the Classic guilds. Who knows? So I am going to end it with this, and I just wanna say thank you guys again for all your support and your positive feedback about stuff and helping me figure things out when it comes to YouTube videos, because God, it's hard. I have so many more amazing podcasts lined up for you guys, and I like this, I don't know, I'm really excited for World of Warcraft again, so keep an eye out on everything that I'm tweeting. Make sure that you follow some of the amazing podcasts, or actually all of the podcasts on Dragon Power Studios, because there are some really cool interviews at the moment going on. The girls from the Geek Herring have Thist, or War Chief Thist, as we should call her. So make sure that you check those out, and of course Frasley and all the guys that do everything on the Blue Recluse. It's so much fun being part of the group. So, make sure that you listen to all those podcasts, especially if you like World of Warcraft and gaming. Anyhow, I hope that you have an amazing time tonight if you are logging into Classic. I think for the Americans it will be more of the afternoon. You lucky bastards. For everyone else, I hope you won't miss too much sleep. Hopefully I will see you in the chat room tonight. That would be really cool if you keep me company on Twitch. Anyhow, want to follow the show? You can do that in the following ways. whispersofwar.podbean.com is where you can find the older shows and all the show notes and links to everyone's tweets and all those things. Go to Twitter for my Twitter account at whispers_of_war, or my personal one, which is at McMonkeys with a Z. Of course, you can you can email the show. This is it, guys. I'm so enthusiastic for Classic. I'm just rambling now. Email whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com, and Twitch tonight, twitch.tv/McMonkeys with 2 Zs, because reasons. And hopefully I'll see you tonight, and otherwise I will see you next week with a new interview. Have a great time, guys. Bye bye.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio.
Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.